Hey everybody, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and the Indie Show. Tonight I am talking Descender Volumes 4 and 5, so we are almost to the end of this. With my guests who have been with me for all of Descender, starting with Coming Man Andy. What's going on, Andy?
Hey, what's going on, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you. So heard you're now Japanese Saga as of today.
Yeah, cracked them open last night, recorded it, and uploaded it this morning. That's a pretty crazy deal.
Nice. Also joining me today is Mr. John from John's Comics with Kids. I do something else with him occasionally or something. So,
if you feel like it,
sometimes. What's going on, Johnny?
I'm just honestly, every time we get together to talk about Descender and I get to go back and reread this, I'm ecstatic. And so just to have a chance to talk about it and geek over Dustin Nguyen and Jeff Lemire, I'm in.
Nice. And finally, but last but not least, No Good Comics. Justin, what is going on, man?
What's up, guys? Chilling, man. Doing great. Thanks for. I'm glad. I'm really. I just love this crew. I love that we've been doing this all the way through. So it's cool. We're on 4 and 5 here for the volumes of Descender, and yeah, man, looking forward to it.
Definitely. So at this point, I think I'm the only person on this panel who hasn't finished it. So I've only read through 4 and 5. Oh, Justin, you have not finished it yet. You have not read Volume 6 yet.
I purposely tried to not read it. I want to read it, but it'll me. Yeah, I'm trying to let me keep my mind clear to what I just should know as we talk about it here tonight.
The drawback to me of doing too many of these at once is it takes me too long to get back to some of these schedules and try to keep all of them moving.
Yep.
When I really just want to finish one.
Yep.
But we are talking about volumes 4 and 5, which where we left off obviously was volume 3, which is still my favorite volume of this series just because of the way it was set up. But what did you guys think of? Well, let's start with volume 4. What do you guys think of volume 4 and some of the twists and turns that happen in there? What are your general impressions, Andy?
Ooh, my first impression is I like how they open it up. They're letting us view all 3 storylines, so to speak, within each page. And that's actually fairly different than what I'm used to in a lot of comic books, is instead of spending a book or 2 or an issue or 2 bouncing back and forth, we get to watch everything unfold simultaneously at the beginning of volume 4. So I appreciate that quite a bit. I say I'm way too much, but then you've got the whole Tim 21, Tim 22 duel going on, which that threw me for a loop. I wasn't anticipating that the first time I read it at all, and I didn't realize that was where they were going with that.
No. So yeah, for those that don't, the structure, which I think is really, really well done on the first issue of, it's basically the top is Tim 21 and 22, the middle is Andy and Effie, and the bottom is Telsa and Dr. Kwan. So we get 3 different, and it goes basically the entire issue like that. Although at one point they flip the top and the bottom early on, but yeah, I mean, we get violence, sex and violence, all in this chapter. We get a little bit of both, but yeah. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on just general thoughts on volume 4?
I think it's obviously you're right. Volume 3 is always going to be this thing that's just so on another level. But I also think it's horribly unfair to compare it to that. The same way that I loved Alienated this last year is my favorite read. And I think a lot of people suffered from how good issues 3 and 4 were. People were like, well, it didn't end as well as I wanted it to end. Well, issues 3 and 4 are 2 of the best comics I've ever read. So it's not fair to grade 5 and 6. And so it's the same with these volumes. At the same time, there are gut punches for me in volume 4. And of course, they always seem to come to Driller for me. And Driller choosing to exile himself, choosing to put himself in an airlock and send himself out into space. That's powerful. And confessing what he's done and then being Andy basically sending him off into space. I think that whole sequence which is mostly like there's a lot of silence in these first few issues. There's a lot of just stares and facial expressions and close-ups of things, and then the silence of Driller going out into space, and then black. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Driller and his guilt,
Yeah.
is just handled so well throughout all of this. It's just, yes, he's a robot. Yes, his emotions are not the same, and yet they're there. And it's just everything with Driller is just very powerful throughout this whole book. Justin, what about you? What are your thoughts on Volume 4 before we really dig into some of these points we've already brought up?
So, I mean, I like that. I mean, you mentioned twists and turns, and this is something that definitely catches you off guard in several occasions. And anytime that I'm reading a book or comic or whatever that I'm really enjoying, there's always that like question in my head of like, how can this get better? Or like, what are they going to do next to really make this like even better than what I've just read? As we mentioned in Volume 3 and how great it was. And they do it here again. And as Andy was saying too, like really surprised on the direction that they went between Tim 21 and Tim 22. And that just completely shocks you. And you start to see some hints of it. And when you finally see who we think is Tim 21 coming here. But once he gets a great, I took it a screenshot before, but I just wanted to show this one. I don't know if this is actually going to show up now that I think about it. Oh yeah, there's a lot of glare, but this is him after he meets up and, who we think is Tim 21. And he's just like doing all these tricks and stuff and trying to get past the guards. And like the next page, I think is like, Tulsa even saying that, like saying like, oh, I like this new Tim that we have here, who's just like not afraid to kick butt now. And I know I questioned that even as I went through, but then you just get this twist, this turn where you're just like, oh, whoa, like once you learn who it really is and everything. So just overall, just the twists and turns definitely had me the entire time, and it kept it where I'm still hooked. So
nice. I will say, like, let's talk a little bit about the bait and switch. Like that scene, that panel you just showed, I was like, okay, that's the other Tim. And like for me, which left me a little disappointed because then they try to sell you back that it's really just Tim 21 and he's just. But I was like the whole time I was never convinced again that it wasn't that that he hadn't switched. Like after that scene, to me that scene, like it was cool, but it also gave away.
I think because we saw him in Volume 3, I think, change to look like one another or to change their appearance, it set up it was going to happen. And I do think I'm with you, JP. Like I knew instantly the second they were fighting on the outside of the asteroid, and then it cuts to what we didn't see what happens. And then we see them show up with one dead and one not. I was like, that's a switcheroo happened. I felt like I knew instantly. So there was zero surprise for me, but instead I got a lot of enjoyment watching our characters try to catch up to it. Right. And that was interesting to me. So the slow, for me, it played like a slow burn because I predicted it. But I think that for me, there was two ways to enjoy it. I wasn't bothered by it at all. I liked the way that it was like, you could see, for me, it was watching Tim 22 show what a good liar he is.
Yeah. Like, it didn't like ruin it for me, but it was just like, for me, I was like, okay, like, I kind of suspected that when he first shows up, like after the fight and it cuts away and then he shows up packing him. I'm like, is this the old bait and switch? And then as soon as he did the little move to fight the guards, I'm like, oh yeah. And I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in Tulsa and Quan. Well, not in Quan, because he doesn't catch on to that kind of stuff, I don't think. But I was a little disappointed in Tulsa that she didn't catch on quicker, that it wasn't the Tim that she knew. But I also think part of that is her personality, and she's a little bit, the whole time, despite the fact that she had this like building relationship with Tim 21, she was he's a robot, very like standoffish. So I mean, it works, but I was like, she should be less trusting. Like I felt like during this period, but that was just me. What about you, Andy? How do you think they handled that whole bait and switch?
Well, I, unlike you guys, did not catch on right away because I'm just so enthralled with the art and the story that sometimes I start reading too fast. I pick up on that, and it didn't even click to me right away. I can't even remember where it clicked, but it was shortly after the whole hallway scene where he's doing the flips and shooting them, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I think I went back and reread it, and I'm like, but my heart didn't want that to be the case because then I knew exactly what was gonna play out after that if that was the case. I'm like, uh-oh, where are we going? That adds a lot of suspense. So I can tell that they weren't trying to completely hide the fact of the bait and switch. They wanted the reader to catch on, because when I did catch on, it added 5 more layers of suspense and dread for me while going through this volume.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's handled really well, and he reveals at the end of this, right? Yeah, right at the end of, or toward the end of this volume, he reveals himself, and he reveals himself to the reader before he reveals himself to them, like officially. But I thought it was really well handled. I thought they did a good job with it, and yeah, but I did feel like when he did the flip thing, I'm like, she should be like, no, that's not the Tim. that was like, okay. Because he does comment, I like this new Tim. And it's like, I wonder why, because Tim's not capable of that. So, what other things we already talked about? I want to go back to the first issue a little bit and just talk about how they handle that. Because I feel like that is pretty unique. Andy talked about, like, you don't see that, the 3 ongoing stories, and there's almost 0 dialogue during that whole first chapter of this volume. I mean, there's some dialogue on the first 3 or 4 pages, and then the rest of it is Tim 21 and 22 kind of fighting, Andy and Effie getting to know each other again, and then Tulsa and Quan trying to escape, and it's very interesting. The violence, the sex, as I talked about, like all of it's just very
action packed.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of paced with similar, not really similar, but it's just really well handled. I thought. What did you guys think of the way they handled that issue? And I will say, I love this one panel of her like leaping over the thing and then kicking the robot in the face. I just like that was really cool. Like just his art is so well done, but and really well on display in this, because you get a lot of like the white background on the bottom and the dark, like when they're out in space, and like all of this on one page, and it's just like
it's a nice change up, especially, I mean, the way they write it. I mean, even not even just this issue, but this issue compared to like the previous ones, like it's a good mix to, having single story, flash to flash to flash, and, doing it that way to now we're just getting all 3 like the way it's laid out. I think it's just a nice change up to it. Keeps the pace going, as you said.
I think that I'm always surprised how many people dismiss these books because the art style is so different that they just can't handle it. It's the same with the Tradmore, Silver Surfer Black, or whatever. I feel like it's a shame that art has to be so subjective, and it can't. There's not as much of a willingness within the comic community sometimes to accept alternatives, even though alternatives is sort of the point. Like the art should fit the story, and this for me just absolutely fits. And with that first issue of this trade, that sort of, I don't want to call it a silent issue, but certainly far more silent than normal issue. And the way they use not just the 3 stories that are playing out, but then like color, right? JP talked about like the black and the white and then the colored. It's like there's this fun blend going on. And then of course, like JP is saying, they swap at one point and then blend together. And it's artistically so like vivid and rich and yeah, I mean, I again and again, like you turn a page and you're like, God, this guy's a genius.
Yep.
And it's the detail he can create in watercolor is stupid. And you look at people with digital like artwork that have all these tools and tricks in their trade and just can't do half of what he's doing.
Yeah, like it's just, the book is not traditional, but it doesn't change the fact that like every freaking panel is just like the people. It's watercolor, and everyone's so expressive, and there's like John said, there's so much detail. It's just phenomenal the work that he does. It's just crazy.
Notice the way it's very contrasting too, right? The storylines, the art, they're meant to be very distinctive and separate from each other. Not only do they do that in the writing style, but it's done extremely well in the art. And then, like John mentioned, they take it and blend and then flip, which kind of gives me goosebumps because I'm starting to think that issue 1 of this volume, that beginning issue, well, that's issue 17, is probably one of the best written comic books I think I've read in my memorable history.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, for a book, like I said, with almost no dialogue other than the first few pages and the last couple pages, like it's really well written. and then of course his art just like, sells it. So I mean, like packs it obviously because it has to, but it's just a really interesting, well thought out issue. He split them into these 3 groups, but he doesn't leave you for an issue or leave you for pages. He just tells a story, top, middle, and bottom of all 3 at the same time, and it's just really well paced and it's really well done, I think. And that's just like, at least for me, like that issue, like as a volume, I would say 3 is definitely better. The only issue I've read so far that's maybe better is the Driller issue, and those 2 issues are just so phenomenal. And to me, this issue is definitely a highlight so far of the series.
Yep.
Any other thoughts before we move on to other aspects of this about that particular issue and how it's put together?
No.
Okay. Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about was something John brought up at the beginning, which was Driller and his banishment. His chosen, like his confession, and like how well that's handled is basically Andy and Effie and Bandit and Driller and I'm forgetting the other guy's name. What is his name?
Tullus? Are you talking about?
Well, Tullus doesn't make it.
Before that.
And I do think I will say that's maybe my one disappointment in this, is I felt like Tullus was just kind of like, oh, we're done with him.
Yeah.
Like I felt like that was not handled as well as I would have liked, given the role he played earlier in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do felt like that the worm and him just sacrificing himself, which makes sense for this character, but it just felt like an odd way for me to end his storyline. Basically, it sort of felt like they were like, well, we don't really need him anymore.
Right.
Yeah, like I thought he was he was obviously way closer to Tesla, and I just pictured like that was going to be his reason to continue to move on. And so when they did kind of throw him off, I just feel like he wouldn't have been willing to just save that random to him more of a random crew than if Tesla was on board with them that very moment. You know, that I could see it being a little bit more understanding.
It just felt that whole thing felt a little odd, I will say, and it sort of felt unnecessary, other than to remove him from the story, like the worm, the solar worm or whatever they called it, served no other purpose other than to like, okay, we want to get Tullus out of the story.
Yeah, they could.
No, I totally agree. I think you could tell that the writer was starting to get into the end game and like, okay, we need to cut some fat here. We need to narrow this down. Because for me, volumes 4 and 5 are the most action packed that we've had. I feel like the story starts to really go like fast. Huge things happen, deaths. The story moves a lot more quickly. The characters are constantly in peril, like life-threatening peril, like consistently. And I think for me, it just was a sign that they thought, we know kind of where we're going to end this thing. We got to get going. Like it's just got to happen. which is a shame. But it, for me though, like you were saying, the Driller finale, there's just something about it for me that I know that it probably doesn't make a ton of sense, but I always connect this book to Toy Story for me. The Toy Story, you got Andy and his toys, and here we've got Andy and his toys, and the relationship. Well, and then there's Andy with his Saga toys, and the relationship he has with robots and his it has evolved. He's been scarred by losing them in some ways and what they've done to him, and now I think a lesser writer would have dragged out Driller's confession. I mean, it's only been a few issues since Driller confessed to us, the audience.
Yeah.
And a lesser writer probably would have dragged that out for, fake suspense for a while. When is this going to be dropped? And for us, it was like almost the next issue. Driller is like, it's like 2 issues later. Driller's like, the second they get in the ship, basically, Driller's like, I gotta go. Like I haven't earned this right to be here anymore. And he completely confesses to Andy, and watching Andy just take that information in and then just push the button. Like, you're gone.
Yeah. To see his face, the way,
the transition of his face, and you're watching his girlfriend be like,
realizes,
the girlfriend can't even believe that he's even contemplating it, and then he's just like done.
Yeah,
it was it's just such a great moment, and the bright red light of the booth that he's in, that Driller is in, it's it's gold. It's absolutely gold. And again, I think most Descender fans love Driller, and he's their favorite character because his arc is not simply one little thing. It's like it's got several layers and keeps evolving. And now we see him on this Dagobah like planet with where they really introduce magic, which is going to be an issue that we're going to need to get into at some point. Because I have not
felt like, just an aside, like the whole, like him showing up on this other planet and it's like magical, and I'm like, what the hell story am I reading? I'm like, is this the afterlife again? Like, cause they showed like Robot Afterlife,
right?
And like the whole thing was just very weird. And then the Neshians show up, and that's obviously in volume 5, which we haven't got to yet. But it's just like, what is happening? Like,
from what I understand, and I've been very patient about, like you guys with the final volume, I have not dived into Ascender yet. I've read issue 1 and that's it. I'm being very good about waiting. And it is all magic based. There's a lot more magic and religion and faith. And it's like this story has the science fiction and the robots, and the next story is not as much in outer space. It's very on one planet and on this culture in some ways. So I was excited to see this and remember, like, okay, this was a long con. In some ways, he was setting up the idea that it's not just like Battlestar Galactica, which I'm a big fan of as well. It's not just about the science. It's definitely about the where does the mystical and the faith come in? And we have these visions that are really religious for Tim. He's having these near-death experiences, and yet connecting with the robot gods in some ways.
Yeah.
Like that is clearly mystical and religious and beyond the science, right?
Right.
And I think what Driller is experiencing is something akin to that.
Well, if I'm remembering correctly, John, isn't Ascender supposed to be like 100 years after we finish?
I thought it was 10.
I'm not going to give it away.
Okay,
I want you to experience it. If we decide to keep going with this through,
if you guys are up for it, I'll definitely.
All I know is I think a large amount of time has passed, which means that we're going to get this universe, but a very different look at it, which is what I'm really excited for.
Definitely, I think that's a fair assessment. But they definitely tell you exactly how much time has passed because it's kind of pivotal.
I'd be down for that, by the way.
Definitely. I'm not even sure how far that they're into Ascender, I'll be honest, but
3
volumes.
I think they're about to publish a 3rd volume, but I can't remember. I know they've got 2. I thought it was 3.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Nice. So the rest of this, like, I'm not sure what to say about the rest of this. The rest of it is just sort of, other than those few moments, like the rest of it is just like the act, like when we pick up the volume, Tim is with the Hardwire, and they're captured, and basically it's just setting up this final conflict. It's just moving us toward like everything that's like moving us toward a final battle, and I feel like sort of that's what both of these are. And like once you get past those few moments, I feel like this, and when we get into 5, it's really just about putting the pieces on the board for whatever the final little showdown is. Were there other moments for you guys in 4 that you want to talk about before we kind of move on to 5?
Really quickly, just the Bandit and Effie connection that's made here is stands out quite a bit, and for a really good reason. You know, we finished volume 3. Going forward, her people have been wiped out, so she finds herself kind of apart from the crowd now. So she makes this great connection with Bandit going forward, and there's some great points back when they're on the ship and she's giving him like a full diagnostic or a cleanup and whatnot. Nobody's done maintenance on him in 10 years. So that connection, machine to machine, yet she's not quite all machine yet. She's torn between 2 worlds. So it's interesting to see her making this choice to side more with Bandit or more with machines, even after her encounter with Andy at the beginning of the volume.
Oh, nice.
I would agree with that. I thought that was a very interesting, because Bandit was Andy's dog. Yeah. And yet Andy like was excited to see him, but really has like tried, and he's kind of done the same thing with his thoughts about Tim. Has tried to keep him pushed off, because he's went down this road of they're evil, I'm going to destroy them, they killed my mother, like I hate all robots. So you can see every time like he interacts with Bandit that like he's torn between this was my dog and like, but it's this thing I no longer like, I hate now. And to see her then connect with it is a very like cool, I think it's a very interesting and cool take, because it's, you know, they both started out as people that were orphaned because of the harvesters or because of robots, and her evolution to like trying to find this balance between the two versus his, where he's still stuck sort of in this moment of what happened to his mom, and that he's never been able to move past. And I do think that's, you're right. It is kind of like cool that she kind of like, she suffered another loss, and she's like connecting more now to the robot side of it than the people side, which she was already kind of doing anyway. But
it's almost like she had an opportunity to make a choice, and the choice that she made is to draw back towards that other side that she was going towards.
Yeah.
JP likes to have these thoughts and then just like let them sit.
Oh, sorry. So what about Andy or John or Justin? You guys got anything else in Volume 4 you guys want to point out before we go?
I mean, we've mentioned the art a ton. Obviously, it's hard not to. I will say the covers are just as worthy as, you know, anything else. The 21st issue is a particular favorite of mine. It almost feels like a Star Wars poster. It's like freaking nuts. You got like little TIE fighters and stuff flying around. I mean, it just feels like
it is kind of the Star Wars here thing.
It's better than most Star Wars posters. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning and full of so much detail and so many characters. And I just I dig it. So yeah, the covers are just epic and worthy of everything inside.
Like this one.
Yep.
And because we know which Tim that actually is,
right?
And she does not, but plus she's just looking like a badass, which which I enjoy.
Definitely.
And then I love the re-reveal of Driller when he comes up out of the mud and the muck, and he's just like, and the guy is like, like the little hermit guy thinks it's some kind of monster, like some kind of bog monster is like. But from a sci-fi standpoint, like this panel
Oh
Yeah.
man,
I should make myself.
Oh,
it's on the
heck
back of the trade if you want. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, it is on the back of the trade. Yeah.
I'm also looking-
He's looking at it.
yeah.
Well, I was just like showing it in the book. Like I stumbled back across it, and I kind of forgot it was on the back of the trade.
That's
Yeah.
something I'd kill to have like a giant canvas print of.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
That'd be dope.
Oh yeah.
yeah. The original art for that panel would be
I mean, honestly, any of it is just going to be on another level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do love there's so many unusual planets that they use in this. So it's a very like traditionally sci-fi kind of space story because you get these wonderful planets, and the water planet that we kind of get at the end
at the very end. Yeah.
is another kind of cool one. I enjoy the way Dustin Nguyen kind of captures each of those personalities. So that when drillers slog him through the Dagobah marshes, basically like the look and feel of it is so much grimier and dirtier. And then the pristine blue waters in the water planet. And so I've always really appreciated how he captures that. And so the water planet, when the drama of Tulsa being kind of flushed out into the water to drown and the peril of that, which bleeds right into the next volume. I really enjoy that too.
There's kind of the Dagobah planet, and I do love how he uses so you get like the dirty kind of grimy swamp planet, and then you get, and I love how all the spaceships are just like white. Like whenever you're inside a spaceship, it's just white. It's just people in this white background. And the technology is all like clean and everything. And then you go back to Driller and his Dagobah planet and the dirt and the grime. And then, like you said, you go to the water one, which I got to find the panel again.
I have the screenshot here if you want.
Yeah. And then the blue and it's just really well done.
Yeah.
Like all of it. The art is just, like this panel where she like gets ejected out of the ship into the water, like in the bubbles, and look, I mean that thing is just crazy.
Well, and I know we're still on volume 4, but like it bleeds right into 5 when we start right off underwater, and the fish are the robot fish are swimming around. I dig it.
So I think we're ready to move on to 5, and so. So here's the interesting thing. I don't feel like there's as many, like, cool, like, how do I describe this right? Say this the right way. Like, whereas I feel like there's some more powerful moments in 4, I don't feel like there's as much in 5. I feel like 5 is just like, okay, we got to go from here to where we're going to set up whatever the end game is, which Justin and I haven't read, and you guys have, but, like, I feel like there's a lot of getting from A to B in 5 as opposed to really. I mean, there are some good moments. I just feel like compared to some of the others, it's not.
I feel like the like volume 4, I feel like stopped a few moments to really take in certain moments. I guess where this was, as you're saying, like essentially just fast-paced moving pieces, like just setting everything up. There was there weren't as many moments here where it really paused on anything too heavy. There are some some small moments, but compared to what we've been reading previously, I do feel like 5 definitely was a little more just faster pace overall, I think.
Yeah.
And I will also say that if you were to imagine this, as some of us have done, as like a TV series or something, most of volume 5 is a single episode. Let's just be honest. Like it almost all takes place within an hour. Like it's from beginning to end. You have Tulsa's near drowning all the way through to being like meeting the colony at the bottom of the water planet. Like that's time wise, you could see that whole storyline being less than an episode, like one dramatic episode. Now, does it have any emotional level impact of like the Driller sequences? Absolutely not. But what it does have, for me at least, is the intensity of a like thrill ride where it's like, this person's dead. Nope, this person's coming back. Now this guy's still alive. You got to watch out for this there's like, for me, every issue had a couple of those great moments. But what does it amount to time wise, plot wise?
Not very long.
It's just one episode of a show is what it felt like to me. And if you read it, it reads supremely fast, volume 5.
Yeah.
And all the stuff with Tim 22 and Telsa,
Just basically,
like
it's one big fight.
it's a one epic fight spread over five issues, and it goes super quickly. It slows down when you get to Driller on the other planet and you get some of his stuff, what he's going on. But if you just put together all the Telsa Tim 22 stuff, Dr. Kwan, it's like the amount of time it would take place on screen or something is just almost nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah, unless you just really drug it out. Like, I mean, like you said, it would be like, I mean, it would be more than if you could drag it out to more than one episode because if you were interspersing it with the rest of the story like he does. But like, as far as like, yeah, it's literally one fight scene. She gets ejected into the water, Kwan saves her, and then the rest of it is a fight between her, Kwan, and 22, and then eventually her and 22, and then her and Tim and 22, and that's it.
Yeah. And I will say, like, it's full of great beats, and I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. I'm just like,
no, go for it.
No, you're good.
It's full of great beats, and that's what I like about it. It reminds me of a well-edited action sequence in a movie where there are beats for things, and you have dramatic beats where like Dr. Kwan is freaking out in his jail cell, wondering she's going to drown. And like he's freaking out, and they're having an argument. He's trying to reason with Tim 22, and it's not working. And the intensity is there, and all of a sudden it's like the bars go crunch, and that moment for me is one of those just like crap your pants, awesome, dramatic, intent, action scene moments where everybody's eyes go a little wider.
Yeah,
And
Tim 22 is like, what the heck?
yeah, even Dr. Kwan is like,
Oh yeah, you didn't actually show his like side eye.
I didn't know that I could do that. And for me, like, I love those kind of beats. Just like when you think Tim 22's out and he ain't, and he comes back. It's that Terminator kind of thing. And it's like the beats are so well done. It feels like a good action movie, like a Christopher Nolan movie or something where you just, every frame has its purpose and it builds an intensity nicely. Now, emotionally, you're not as invested because there's no emotional level at stake here, but lives are on the line, and that's the action drama.
Which I think is okay because it's like you don't want the same thing over and over again, anyways, in any series of stories or anything like that. I think that the pace of the whole thing, the past 5 volumes that we've read, has just been so refreshing. Because it just every volume changes. I mean, even as we were talking about issue 1 in volume 4, the way that he lays things out versus volume 3, where it's really focused on one individual character, and now we have this where it's just like this fast pace going through this quick build up. It's very refreshing, I think, and it's well done.
I will say, like John was talking about the revived Tim 22 Terminator, like the art on that is just.
Oh wait, you got to show this one. You got to show the original. Before that happened,
oh yeah,
the skull, the cables like hanging out.
Kwan when Kwan basically rips his head off. Yeah,
I thought that was so epic.
You got it. There you go. On a slightly deeper level too, there's an aspect of the value of human life placed in this volume as well. When Telsa is drowning, he paints her eyes black. You can still see her retinas, but when you go to look, her eyes are actually black while she's essentially drowning. And to see the doctor fight so hard to try to rescue her, that's the deeper meaning of, even though we're in a world of robots and they're fighting for their place here, there's still an extremely high value on human life that they're placing within the storyline. But yeah, the volume itself did feel like a massive setup to get us to the point where Tim 21 is connected to Bandit somehow, so that they can, or Bandit connects to Tim 21 remotely so that they can track Tim 21. But what that does, the side effect of that, is it essentially connects Tim 21 to the godlike world of the robots. What do they call it? It's like a never-ending stream of information, and they realize as they realize what's happening. Well, this volume has been a whole setup to call back the original harvesters, essentially.
Yeah.
Which goosebumps. That's giving me
Yeah,
goosebumps.
when he connects to like we can, and the harvesters are like we can see it all, and we see all of you. Yeah, like
That was a big one. Big panel.
but I really enjoy like all this information. All of this is going like he connects, and then you see this, but then you get a real who Tim 21 is, despite being a robot, is when he comes out of this. The one panel that he's focused on, or the one part that he's seen, is what's happening with her, like her and Tim 22. Like he instantly, that's the part that he takes from it because his friend is in trouble. And like in many ways, Tim 21 has more humanity than any of the other characters in the story.
Yeah,
like
it's true.
Or more compassion for his fellow robots and his fellow man, and just it's just really. I just find it very interesting. I'm still like confused about exactly what the heck is happening every time, which I think we all are going to be for until the last issue. Whenever he connects to this thing, like, and it's speaking in all these different like voices and saying the same thing, but this harvester is, it's very interesting where they're going with it. There is the other moment, like you talk about like how they show, the value of human life and like how well his art is after the UGC basically falls into the trap and they try to escape. And you see her dad, who's like the leader, his face when he realizes that almost nobody survived that trap. He realized what's happened, what he's done, like by like basically pursuing this course. Not that it's necessarily his fault, but like his face when he realizes only 3 ships out of like 100 survived, and just that they're all gone. And just the weight of that, and he sort of carries that. Like you can see the difference in his face the rest of this volume compared to like his expression, like whenever he's having discussions the rest of the time about what his next move is, what he's going to do, like the weight that he's carrying because of that is even more than what he was carrying before. Like he just seems very more like when he's dealing with Andy and Effie, like he is very much a man who's like carrying a lot of weight now that this is all coming to a head in a way he did not want. Oh, I got to show this panel because I just flipped to it. But like, this one, like,
so good.
Yeah, it's just so good. So, what else about this volume you guys want to talk about here? Justin, what about you? What else stands out to you about this?
Trying to go through. That was one. I mean, you were showing this before, but I was trying to look for the actual like connection, how it all just like comes together. His mind and showing everything. And I know you just showed this, but this is like
it's just such a master. That spread page is just a masterpiece, and it looks so God. It looks great on that screen. Even
it looked really good on that screen.
I took a screen. This was like one of the ones I took a screenshot of, like right off the bat when I was first going through. Like I usually try to just read through it before I start going back and screen grabbing things, but this was just something that it was so, just everything about it. It's just so powerful. And like you said, though, like we're trying to figure out. There's a lot of different things going on, even just within this one panel, that you're just trying to figure out like what's going on for with this whole robot dream sequence, especially. I don't know. Yeah, this is one thing too. The what you were just showing before, the panels of the general. I liked it in this art, and I know we kind of touched on this. I just love how the artist can get away with not having much background, like when you're and yet the panel is so strong or so powerful. When you're like we pointed out, JP, about like the the general's face of just how much weight he's carrying and like the shock of losing, whatever 100+ ships that he lost. If you look at that panel, it's all white. Other than that, I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And yet it's still so powerful. Just seeing his expression, you don't need any background. I mean, there's literally no background. It's just white. So it's cool. It's great that he can get away with that, and it works. It works well.
The deeper we get into this, the more I realize that they're making a conscious effort and choice to do that.
Yeah.
So that the reader focuses on that and spends more time in that moment and retains or retrieves or gets more from that artwork. Because then if you painted a background with a ship interior, my mind is I'm going to be all over that looking for stuff.
Busy. Yeah.
The entire time. It's going to be really busy.
True.
So for there to be a lot of negative space like that really makes what's there that more impactful.
Well, I also, I think because of the kind of paper he's using, the grain of the paper is always there. If you look at the pen, if obviously the covers don't have it, but the individual pages, you can see the grain of the paper.
I'm gonna come through now.
It acts as texture, right? It acts as texture on a wall. It acts as texture on a floor or on a background. Even underwater, it acts as a texture. And I think that's another thing that I think Nguyen plays into. And he knows he doesn't need to give you a ton of detail in the background. The simple use of a little amount of color and the texture of the paper gives you something.
Yeah.
I did want to say I love that some of you were able to spot how the Tims had switched places. But what's even cooler is watching Tim 21's arc, right? And now to see him, I don't want to say he's a killer at the end because he technically isn't, but the way he rolls up and says, get your hands off my friend. It's a very Linda Hamilton kind of moment. It's a Ripley moment when he's opening those doors and he's like, let her go, and he's sopping wet, and then he rolls in there and tries to like fight with the other Tim, and then he chops his head off, but it doesn't kill him because he's a robot. He's still going.
It made us
I just love Tim's evolution. I think we're finally getting to a Tim who understands the realities of the world more. He's been through enough that he is not as naive as he might have been at the beginning. He's not a battled warrior or anything, but because he clearly needs help from Telsa to finish off Tim 22.
Yeah.
But I love his growth as finding his own courage. And I think that was one of the things I loved in this volume too, was the little things that we see in Tim building through his evolution, which is important because obviously now as these events are getting bigger and affecting all these different systems, we're seeing the political and militaristic realities sort of falling in on our characters. And that's going to be pivotal in the final volume, seeing all these cultures, which is that, I don't know if you want to share, I don't mind sharing the fold out.
Oh, the fold out. Yeah.
Where we're seeing all the different civilizations dealing with robot
uprising.
Yeah.
Oh, they did it as a fold out? That's awesome.
And all of that stuff
wow
is going to be pivotal, obviously, going forward. Sorry, I'm like blowing this. I've never had to share something this unwieldy before.
Yeah, so
was that
Andy and Justin, you guys both read this as digital, right?
Digital, yeah. So this just looked like a full one, a single page.
So John, kind of walk them through how that the reveal is beforehand. It's basically all robot. He sends the message to Rise, and you get the Nishian robot.
Yeah, it jumps to the Nishians, and we're seeing kind of like how they're reacting, and the robots sort of losing it and like just basically unloading.
But I just love how you turn the page
and it's just Descender.
Wow.
And then that folds out.
And then this opens up
to Genocide
to see 4 different systems or 4 different planets and how it looks, and 4 splash pages together, each one with the name of a different system and a reality that they're facing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that the robot uprising is happening.
Yeah, and then it folds back, and then you go on, and then it's right back to the Tims.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, it's a really cool device to kind of show for what is important to Volume 6, which is the idea that as intimate as Lemire writes and as intimate as this story has been, even when it's dealing with like governments and things like that, this has been a very intimate story. The ramifications are,
Massive.
universal.
Right.
And that's where we're headed for the final volume.
Yeah. So
That's
go ahead.
yeah. No, I feel like I missed out with that experience, just because. I mean, to me, I read it. I mean, those panels especially, I feel like I just read it very fast, and it didn't hit me in the same way. Like I got it, like all things are happening in other places, but I do feel that seeing that display certainly would have made me take a little more time to appreciate what was going on. So it's really cool that they did it like that. And I'm already on the hunt right now for trying to collect issue 1 and probably all the issues, but now I kind of want to get the trade just to have that too.
Well, I would guess, my guess is that issue probably has that.
I'm sure it does. And
Yeah.
you have the hardcovers, right? JP, who has the hardcovers? Doesn't one of you have the hardcovers?
Alec.
Alec does. Yeah, because I'm sure that the hardcover has it as well. I just haven't read it in that fashion.
So, like, I actually just in the side is I looked for, because I thought about trying to get the hardcovers, and you can find Volume 1 hardcover. Volume 2 hardcover is a ghost.
Really?
There's not one on eBay. There's not one like Amazon. Everywhere is sold out of Volume 2 hardcover. So, yeah, because I've actually considered trying to track down the hardcovers for this just because I've enjoyed it so much, and I'd like the bigger format for the art.
Right.
And so I don't know. I may still try to do it, but yeah, Volume 2 appears to be very hard to find in the hardcover. So that kind of brings us, we're almost at the hour mark, to the reveal at the end, which is we finally, Tim and Tulsa come face to face with Dr. Solomon and the ancient robots.
Mhm.
Right here at the end. Get my light where I can show it. And basically, the ancient robot refers to him as his son. I have so much to tell you. We have so much to do before the harvesters arrive. And as we get to the end of Volume 5, and yeah, I don't even know what to say. What's happening there?
Well, I'm glad that we actually got to meet the guy, Dr. Solomon, because I was starting to question through parts of this storytelling that Dr. Kwan, how full of crap is he, or sometimes I feel like he really weasels his way out of things or tries to, and people call him out on his crap. And it's like, well, does this guy really is he still alive, or is Dr. Kwan leading us into something, that wasn't Dr. Solomon at all? But I'm glad that we were able to actually see Solomon.
Well, yeah, because everything, Kwan's been caught in lies so much that everything he said at any point,
right.
Which is why Tulsa just refuse, even when he saves your life, pulls her back in from the water and saves her life. She refuses to trust him because he said so many lies. There's no way to know what's true and what's false when he talks. And so it's is Dr. Solomon real? Did he kill? He says he just stole the technology and left, but did he kill Dr. Solomon? To me, there was a question in my mind of whether or not Dr. Solomon was still alive. Yeah.
Right. Same.
Yeah. But yeah. And I'll be honest, John, I hadn't really noticed the texture is much, I noticed it, but it hadn't really registered. And now that you said that, I can't not see the texture from the paper on all of these splash pages, and it's amazing.
I was gonna say, I hope it didn't ruin it or anything.
No, it's better. It's just I knew it was there, but it just hadn't registered. That's what it was. That it was that watercolor paper texture. It's just it really,
because when you look at the covers and it's not there, it's like a whole
what
other.
is there on this cover?
Is it on that one?
You can see it in the sky and stuff.
Okay, so maybe it is on some of them.
Yeah.
So on the digital version, you can see it pretty well. They actually highlight it pretty well on here.
Which is what I really felt added a lot of depth to reading this digitally is if you felt that paper, you know exactly what it feels like. So when you're clicking page to page digitally, I have that sensory memory of what that paper feels like. And so to be able to visually see that almost made me feel it almost down to my soul. That added a lot of depth to reading this digitally. I think that's why this is one of my top favorite reads digitally. And I think it's only going to be better in hardcover.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, any final thoughts on these 2 volumes before we keep going? Andy's ready. He's got some.
I got one quick one that earlier, and I think at the end of volume 4, the beginning of volume 5, when he connects to the system and is talking to the harvesters, and the harvester says, "You shouldn't be, or you shouldn't exist." Yet at the end, he said he meets the ancient robot. He says, "My son, my prodigy. I have so much to tell you. We have so much to do before the harvesters arrive." So I'm like, my brain is struggling to make the connections on who fits where, when, and how. Because if the harvester, when he connects, the harvesters say this should be a thing. Because essentially, Tim 21 and Tim 22 are man's version of themselves built in a robot, right? It's a recreation of man in robot form. So the harvester sees him as what he shouldn't exist. Yet this ancient robot says, that they've got a lot to do before the harvesters arrive. So you get one aspect on the far right, and you get humans on the far left, and I feel like you get Tim 21, Tim 22, the Tim line, and then this ancient robot like stuck in the middle, almost like you're seeing things merge.
So I didn't realize that at that last page that the old man is Dr. Solomon, right?
Yeah.
So the guy behind Dr. Solomon is this
android.
Right, an android. So, but he's the one talking the whole time. It's not Dr. Solomon at all.
Not Dr. Solomon.
Dr. Solomon never says a word.
Right. So that's where I didn't.
He said something earlier, but he doesn't say anything on the last page.
On that last page, right? Okay. So I actually think I misread that to some degree because I was thinking Dr. Solomon was the one speaking and saying, "This is my son or my progeny." And
because he's standing in the foreground, anyways, you wouldn't assume. I think.
Right. So that's interesting.
I think what they are, at least what I feel like they've always done, but what they're really doing here and pushing into the final volume is this reality that as much as we view, well, it's the humans and the robots, and we're all one mind and they're all one mind. The reality is we're seeing over and over again that there is a rainbow of perspectives in every culture, right?
Right.
We can't paint the humans with the same brush because Andy alone runs the gambit of emotions and thoughts on this conflict, right? And we might want to paint all the droids with the same brush, but we can't. And we clearly have dissension within these 2 characters speaking to Tim 21. Right. We have his father figure at the very end, and then we have the gods, and they aren't even in agreement on what's happening and what's going on, and obviously Driller and the dog, they're in disagreement, and in between you have a variety, I think, and I think I like that it almost in a weird way humanizes the droids because now they all have perspectives and personalities and belief systems and opinions, right?
It's just really well done. Like, you almost don't. I mean, there's obviously some like characters that you just see, or some robots that you just see like committing violence or whatever, like on these other planets and stuff. But almost any character that you meet in this has depth. They're not just one thing. I mean, you could say maybe Pius, the guy that's like the android that's kind of in charge of the hardwire and the revolution or whatever, is fairly one note. But almost everybody else has, even if they're a robot, has depth to them. Just by the mere fact that the basic drilling robot, the mining robot, Driller, has as much depth as any character in the whole thing. Like, to his and his character. And, his guilt leads him to like banish himself, but we don't really talk about the storyline of but he's ready just to die and seize up. And he meets this old hermit in the thing. And the old hermit's like, well, you can do that, or you can come with me and we can get you some oil and you can keep going. And he chooses to keep going. Like, he goes with this guy and he and helps him along the way, and he keeps moving forward, even though even after he was ready to just be done. And, I just think that's one of the reasons he's such a powerful character, even though the whole thing is just so weird with the goblins and the vampires and the swamp. And it's just it feels like something pulled out of a completely different book. But I enjoy every minute of it. So
I feel like
you got any other thoughts on these volumes and where the story's at this point? You and I are the only ones that have not read volume 6. So
yeah, no, I think that we covered. I can't wait to get into volume 6. Every volume just ended so well, and it just leaves you. I mean, volume 4 with Telsa falling into the water, and then just now finally meeting Dr. So everything just leads you into the next thing. And so I really was fighting hard not to read this, so I'm probably I might read it. I might start it tonight.
If it wasn't so, because we started a little later, if it was a little earlier, I probably would read it tonight. I'll probably read it tomorrow. This is kind of where we're at. But so yeah, you have any? I'm curious, Justin, you have any thoughts on where you think this is going, how this is going to end, Justin? You have anything that Andy and John can laugh at us for being so wrong?
Gosh, I don't know. I haven't really I guess I haven't really put much thought into it like that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't, not at the moment anyways.
And I'm kind of the same way, because I don't feel like there's been enough, particularly all through this, every time I think it's sort of headed in one direction, he kind of he either slightly changes direction or changes direction a lot. He's kept me on my toes for all of this, and I don't really feel like I know where it's going yet. I mean, obviously there's going to be some kind of final confrontation between these harvesters. I feel like are definitely going to show up, and there's going to be some sort of final confrontation. Robots, humans, maybe even the harvesters and the hardwire not being on the same side, and how this goes down. But I really don't know what the end is here. I mean, I feel like I kind of know, because I've heard enough about Ascender before I ever started this to know that most of the technology is gone. So, which maybe I feel like it's a spoiler I sort of wish I didn't have, but I really don't know where this is going. And then it excites me, because usually most of the time I get this deep into something, I know where the end game is. And I don't feel like I exactly know with this, that he's kept me on my toes enough that I don't really know. Now, John and Andy can both be like, they're so well. They don't know what they're talking about. But
yeah. I mean, even just to wrap it up in one final, 5 or 6 issues, it's hard to picture. I don't know.
Feel like there's more than one volume left. I'll be honest. I'm a little surprised there's only one volume left. Yeah. Welcome, Zombie and Dance. I have not shouted out the chat much. I will do that real quick. Louis the 13th was in here earlier. We still hear Lost in Comics, Warlord. I try not to interrupt the conversation. I just kind of click on people while we're doing this. Patrick Wall was in the house earlier. Jay Stacks, Gore Vidal, Perry. I want to thank you all, if you're still hanging out, for joining us. Dennis. So hopefully some of you are at least hanging out and enjoyed this discussion. I really appreciate it. So I think at this point, I don't have anything else related to the Cinder. You guys have any final thoughts before we see what you got coming up on your channels?
Buckle up.
Well, I guess that is something we'll discuss afterward, how quickly you guys want to come back and finish this up. I'm feeling that Jeff and I are going to read it in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I will say the sixth volume is the most debated and most discussed, and I think is easily going to fill 1 hour or whatever. I mean, you can go in a lot of ways with it. So I'm excited that it gets its own place in this discussion. Because, like you're saying, JP, it doesn't feel like it's possible to wrap it all up, and I don't know that it really is. But I think it's definitely going to be an exciting discussion.
Yeah. Let go of the speculation. Let go of the trying to figure out where it leads to. Just sit down, let it go, and then buckle up when you sit down to read that. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Nice.
It's good.
All right.
Sweet.
Well, Andy, what do you got coming up on your channel that you want to plug?
Oh boy, yeah! You just hit that little @ sign and do Comic Man Andy. Find me on all your typical social media platforms. There's a holiday giveaway on my channel. Just subscribe, find the video, enter, and that ends on January 18th. We're gonna go live because I don't want to miss Comigories on the 11th. So I rescheduled. I pushed it back a week because I don't want to miss Comigories on the 11th. So the 18th we're doing that giveaway live, and gonna do the typical 2021 hunt list, the 2021 goals, having fun watching everybody's content do that. So I'm like, I really want to be a part of that as well, because 2020 was a mess for me because I never finished those lists, and I found myself getting completely distracted all year long.
No. I had those lists, and occasionally I got distracted. So there you go. So, what about you, John? You got anything coming up?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm doing book club tomorrow on Alex's channel, and who knows if we're gonna have enough comics to really fill an hour, because my LCS and his LCS did not get any Marvel or any indies yet. Diamond has screwed up in a lot of ways, and they're sending messages out to retailers saying it could be another day, it could be I don't know. So a lot of places don't have books.
Yeah, my comic shop didn't get DC, but got Marvel and Independent.
I was able to get a DC book that we were going to discuss anyway. So I don't know how book club will be. It could be very exciting. And then I've got my poll list video dropping on Thursday as usual. And I don't think I got much going on after that until Comigories is back on Monday of next week. Boom. Season 3 officially beginning, and we'll see if Super Russ can defend his championship.
So you're going to reveal who our contestants are? Who's trying to take Super Russ down? Or are you going to wait and...
I will say we have 3 contestants going against him that have never played before. So it's a rookies tournament. Super Russ with his first victory going against 3 people who've never played before. So a lot of greenhorns.
I see there's 2 people on this panel that we need to point the other way. One over there and one down there that we need to get on.
As long as Andy is okay with playing a different Saga book each time, I think we can.
I think he can do it. I think he can play Saga and Punisher and do okay.
Well, man. I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to spoil that. I just realized I spoiled that for you. I didn't realize you hadn't announced the 11th yet.
Oh, no, we had.
Oh, I think we had. I mean, I thought we had. I know I've been sending messages to everybody who wants to play, like 11. Who's available on the 11th? Who's available?
Yeah. So,
but I've booked our people for the 11th, and I've booked people for the 25th. So we're going to roll through 2 shows here in January and then into February.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Justin, what do you got coming
up? So this Thursday, I'm actually going to be live with the Team Nerd Herd podcast crew. They've been doing a lot on YouTube and Instagram. I love everything that they're putting out. And so we're going to do a top, or I guess like a goals list of 2021, talk about some of the big books that we got from last year. So kind of recapping the year and kind of jump, where we're jumping into 2021. But I'm excited about that. Definitely going to be up past my bedtime because they're all West Coast guys. And even here now, I'm at 11. I'm usually in bed by 10. So I'm over here drinking Coke, hanging in there. But no, so I'm excited about that. And then I got Comic Collector Origins again on Saturday. I've been doing that show now for 24 episodes coming up, which has been a lot of fun. So Andy, I still got to get you on there, man. I'll reach out to you, give you some days because I'd love to have you on.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I had John and JP, but yeah, so that's just been fun. And just trying to put more content out in general on YouTube. I'm starting to film a little more, do a little more pre-recorded stuff. work with the YouTube algorithms a little more, and just have fun with it. So hopefully you have more.
All right. Well, I'll do my usual. The look back on Saturday should come out this week, and then the next episode of the Indie Show is going to be Saturday night, and we're doing a little book I don't even think Andy's ever heard of. We're wrapping up, and we're going through, because Kavi wanted to do it this way. He says we needed to do it this way. We're doing 7, 8, and 9 all together, so we'll probably go through like 2 hours trying to talk about this. So, but we are wrapping up. We're getting up to date currently on where Saga's at through the halfway point of the overall series. Reading volume 7, 8, 9, and discussing those on Saturday. Sunday night I do my whatever show. Then later we'll be over on Whitewell's channel for D&D, and then Monday night my second episode of Helping John with Comigory. Super excited about that. So yeah, I want to thank everybody that hung with us, and I really appreciate it. And we will catch you guys next time. Later, everybody.